Oh,
Meeting in progress.
Oh, and we're recording.
It's official that we really are. Thank you, and thank you everyone for turning up, and welcome to the new faces. We might do an hello thing when we do the general meeting. Let's get the AGM over and done with, and we'll have our general meeting after that. So, we're opening the AGM first of all. Are there any apologies? If anybody knows, Christopher doesn't know already.
Yes, we have Margaret Kinsley and Helen Hutchinson.
Wait, what about Julie and Shane? No,
Give them time.
Right, no other apologies? All right, thank you. And formally, because it's on the agenda, are there any proxies? Never organised that, so I don't imagine to be an answer.
I never actually remembered. I meant to send something out to say how you do a proxy.
Okay. Now, this being the AGM, things are done a little more formally than we might normally operate. So we had to elect the executive later on and committee members. And so we need to have a returning officer and agree on a chair for the meeting and the scribe. Penny Watson, you happen to be the returning officer of the scribe?
I just have to count heads.
Well, let's have a secret ballot. You live in hope. Are you happy for me to be the chair for this meeting? Are you happy for Christopher to be the scribe for this meeting? There's no dissent from the floor. Then we have a motion, and I need a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the previous AGM, which was held on the 22nd of July last year as a total Zoom meeting, because you know what was happening last year. So somebody who was present, the two persons, Ray and Charles, formally ask any questions or comments about the minutes of the previous AGM. If any no discussion required, I'll put the motion to confirmation. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, declare it carried. Thank you. My annual report. Okay. Firstly, I'm pleased to note that the Tasmanian branch of the Australian Electric Vehicle Association is now starting its 7th year of operations. And I thank all those members, both current and former, and present and not, who've contributed to the successful operation of AEVA Tas since its inception. The previous AGM was held, as we just mentioned, on the 22nd of July, online via Zoom, due to the COVID-19 restrictions, and we elected, or in fact we re-elected myself as chair, Michael Wasley as vice chair, Clive, who's on Zoom tonight because he's just escaped the mainland, door slamming behind him as he got back to Tasmania, and as treasurer, and Christopher Walton as secretary. We elected 6 members to the branch committee, and they were John Casmatti, Charles Gregory, Julie Hargraves, Ron Anderson, John Clark, and Shane Harkness. And it was further resolved that Charles Gregory, Clive Atwater, and myself would be the 3 AEVA Tas reps to AEVA's National Council. So I thank again all those persons for their contributions over the last year, and particularly acknowledge all the work done by the Secretary, Christopher Walton, to ensure the successful operation of our branch. Michael Wadsley has already indicated that he won't be re-nominating for the vice chair position, so I sincerely thank him and his wife Penny for all their contributions to AEVA Tas. We have about 128 members at the moment, which is up 13% on 12 months ago, which is good. COVID-19 did not interfere too much with our AEVA Tas meetings after that July date. So in the last 12 months, we've operated pretty well. We decided not to have a full meeting after the AGM, though. Instead, just having an informal online forum with several guest speakers, which went particularly well, all things considered. In fact, we went so well, Charles didn't get to be a guest speaker. And I think the success of Zoom was reaffirmed there. So we're able to have all our remaining meetings, which meet every 2 months, as regular meetings, but always with the Zoom option, which I think works really nicely, getting people from around the state, wherever the meeting actually is, to participate. And as is our practice and philosophy, really, we had a meeting in Burnie and one in North System in the 12 months. Now, one of the things that AEVA does is promote electric vehicles, and I went back through the minutes, so briefly done by Christopher, and I came up, I think I've got 14 events here, and so I offer many thanks to all the energetic and committed people who helped out in one way or another with all these events I'm about to list. They're undertaken in the last 12 months in chronological order. So on 15th of August last year, there was a Tasmania branch anniversary celebration at Campbelltown. Everybody stood around beside the super ultra fast charger. There are photos online, and in my report, which you'll get in the minutes or a link to the report, I've got a link to the photos on the AEVA Tas webpage, so if you want to have a look at those. One of the things that AEVA nationally is doing is organising webinars. And so there was one in October on electric vehicles, home batteries and the grid. I think I've checked out, they're all available still. You can go and find them if you missed, look at them. Then we had the AEVA National AGM in October, and there's reports and videos and things available to look at for that. We had the Clarence Climate Action Community Expo on 17th of October. There was a Westbury Car Show on the 25th of October. Climate Awareness Day, Wynyard High School. Somebody gave a presentation. It was a very successful day.
Great.
Thank you to Grant for that. Got a very nice letter afterwards. Young woman. Thanking everybody's involvement. We had the Fast Chargers Network launched by the Premier in Kings Meadows, and that was quite a coup getting the Premier there, because when trying to get the Premier to do something, suddenly finding how busy his diary is. And he was very supportive of electric vehicles, and in fact I wasn't able to be there, but he did actually criticise what was just been announced in the mainland then about having this road charge thing, and he was impressively outspoken about what a bad idea it is. And then we had the Devonport Electricana in March 21st, the Northwest Eco Fest in April. Then there was an event called Top Gear at the Rocky Cape Tavern in April. And at Tri-Butter, they had an electric and hybrid vehicle show in April. Then somebody gave a talk, was it Darren, at the University of the U3A in April in Wynyard. And then the big deal, really, the biggest deal was the Ag Fest. And there's a very good report and a video that Christopher took and put up. And we had the biggest display or area, whatever we had, a couple of big marquees. It looks terrific in the video that we did. And I'll mention that again in a moment too. And then the most recent thing was another national webinar on true green mobility, which I didn't get to watch, but I have at the time, but I know it's so they had started to have a look at it. That's also really interesting. And the links to nearly everything here will be in the report if something sparked your interest. Once you've heard of this. The other thing we talk about almost every meeting, if not during the meeting and certainly afterwards in more detail, the EV conversions. And I'm pleased to report some progress, and I can congratulate all those involved. The Launceston one, regular attenders or long-term members will know that for many years now, I think it's 4, Ray's been telling us about Launceston College's Suzuki Mighty Boy, which was going to have a conversion. And after 4 years of work, it was finally able to move under its own power in April. It subsequently made an appearance at AFS where it was quite a hit. And it's in the Chris's video. There's a shot or two of the Mighty Boy there. And even more exciting news in one way is that the Hobart conversion group has started up again, having been in death throes for several years. Then there were 2 conversions underway, and again there's some set of photos about that. But I think you note on the web page that possibly a couple of people aren't actually members of the fellow travellers are there.
Yes, you don't have to be a member of the convention.
No.
Conversions group.
Anybody and everybody, unless they're keen on EVs. Now, another thing we talk about are the EV chargers around the state. And one of the main objectives in establishing the Tasmanian branch of AEVA was to encourage the creation of a Tasmanian-wide network of EV chargers. That goal is now very close to being achieved, as it's now possible to drive an EV around most of Tasmania with careful trip planning, using EV chargers operated by a range of providers. PlugShare currently shows about 90 public chargers, ranging from 10-amp power points to destination chargers to fast chargers, to this ultra-fast 350 kilowatts chargers. It's 2 or 3 sites now, I think. Electric Highway Tasmania is a business that we set up called EHT for short, now has 50 kilowatt fast chargers operating at Derwent Bridge, Queenstown, Burnie, Devonport, St Helens and Swansea. Clive was the lead person in making all that happen, and they were installed with the support of grants from the Tasmanian government. And exciting news to follow that up with is that there'll be another $600,000 charger state grants program with a focus on the regions and key tourism destinations. And I think the Premier referred to that at that launch in Kings Meadows, that also was part of election promises. But anyway, they're back in government, and so I did check the website to see if there's any more information about it. Couldn't find anything, but it's quite clear it's going to happen, and I expect that EH2 will want to put in submissions so we can get some more money to put in some more charges around the regions. AEVA lobbies wherever it can, and there are 2 working groups in which we continue to participate as branch reps. Clive Atwater represents AEVA Tas in the Tasmanian Government Electric Vehicle Working Group, and I substitute for him when necessary. And I represent AEVA Tas on the Tas Networks Policy and Regulatory Working Group, which is more interesting than it sounds. And its goal is to contribute to the direction of energy regulatory policy and pricing outcomes and reform in Tasmania. I've been going for several years now, and it's actually quite interesting, the regulatory pressures and expectations and tensions that are on Tas Networks trying to work how to run the distribution network is really rather quite interesting. And also we've got some members now, some of whom might be in the room, I'm not sure, are participating in the EV Grid project. Tas Network as a partner in that. It was a joint mainland state one, and I think they wanted a bit over 100 people, and 22 Tasmanians were chosen. And it's actually collecting data about real life charging behaviour with EVs at home. They realised not just Tas Networks, but other distribution companies as well, that they really don't quite know how it's going to work out. They're worried sick. We're all going to rush home at 6 o'clock from work, all plug the EVs in, and the network's going to fall and fall over. It's a very legitimate concern, and they've got to find out ways to sort of not let that become too big an issue, because as you would remember, even just in terms of heating and cooling, the distribution network has to cope with that enough. That's what we expect the citizens, the network, because of electricity that we need. And when you've got a big pickup that happens maybe for a few hours a year, at the moment, it's a challenge. But when we've got EVs going home every night and wanting to be charged, it becomes even a bigger challenge. Even though the actual amount of power that will be consumed is not an enormous proportion of what's generated in the state, it's that peak issue that they're very concerned about. This project is looking for real life behaviour, and I think it's underway now. There was something on the Facebook page, wasn't there? Somebody saying there's just been installed, I think the other day. Anybody in the room?
Yeah, the installs are happening. They're still in progress the next week or so, but I think the mainland ones will take a bit longer. The actual project will start in earnest in about September for you.
We might make a note of that. We do the general meeting later. So hopefully we'll get somebody to come and talk to us about that project, or even to participate perhaps later on in the year or early next year, depending on how much data that will have quickly. Now, the other thing I'd like to talk about in my annual report is how many EVs, and it's impossible, or very difficult to find out, but we think there might be about 400 EVs in Tasmania. Charles has probably got all the number plates written down somewhere.
Not entirely up to date, but I can check that.
And the good news has been a steady increase in the number of models of cars now available to buy, albeit with some very long delivery times. And AEVA Tas welcomes the state government's introduction on 1 July of the 2-year stamp duty waiver for electric vehicles, which should help increase the number of EVs in Tasmania and thereby further reduce emissions and the state's reliance on imported petrol. So in conclusion, AEVA Tas, despite COVID-19, has had another successful year. And I thank again all the enthusiastic and committed AEVA members and fellow travellers for their contributions, and look forward to continuing to be so. Very confident that will be. And I'll encourage finally members to frequently check the much improved and now interesting AEVA website. Thanks to Krista for that as well, persevering personally with national challenges, and the public Facebook page that Chris, Charles and John particularly put items up on. And you'll find all sorts of interesting and useful bits of information on that, and it's a way to make connections. People the other day, somebody wanted to know a particular piece of information. There it was on the Facebook event, somebody replied. I'm not a fan of Facebook, but I do like actually looking at this Facebook page and seeing what's happening. That concludes my report. So I need a motion for receipt. I'll move it. Thank you, Mitch. Who'd like to second it? Penny? Penny Wasley, that is. Any questions or comments about my annual report? Okay, I'll put the motion for receipt. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, declare it carried. Thank you. Now time for the Treasurer's report, and we've got Clive sitting over there at home by himself.
So this is a mask on. So I might do a screen sharing first.
Yes, please.
And then I can go to Treasurer's report.
You can you shrink it so we can see the whole page?
Here we go.
Then nobody will be able to read it in the
Oh,
room.
all right. Yeah, essentially we lost a bit of money this year, but not too badly. We were a bit lower level activity. In fact, if you look at the 4-year trend, we've gone from a massive level of activity when we held the EV Fest in Devonport 4 years ago, down to a quite modest level of activity this year past, partly reflecting the constraints of COVID, I think, partly reflecting that we've spent quite a lot of money in the past on capital stuff, high vis marquees and so forth, and we've got it all now, so we don't need to keep spending that kind of money. Overall, we spent a bit more than we got in income for AgFest this year. However, I point out that there's $345 remaining to come in from some laggards who haven't paid us yet, and because we keep cash accounts, that doesn't show up. So it's really an asset that we haven't yet received. So the deficit's about $400. Other than that, I'm not sure there's much that I wish to say. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but we start the year with 3,400. We can make a request to National. I have not, partly because I've been rushing back, as Penny said, escaping COVID in the mainland, haven't really turned my mind to whether or not we want to make a big and ambitious thing. And with COVID, it's so uncertain, I'm a bit hesitant to do that. But we do have an opportunity to present to National a request for funds for good purposes should we have the need. Any questions?
Any questions? No questions at all.
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay, knocking dead we are. All right, so I need a motion for receipt of the Treasurer's report. I'd like to move and second that. Steve?
Chris.
Chris, sorry.
Chris.
Samansky.
Oh, that's how I say.
You wrote it down.
What was the first initial?
Yes.
Case.
K.
Oh, sorry. Surname S.
Chris S.
Need to second that? Ron Anderson. Formally, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll put the motion to receipt. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, declare it carried. Ray, are you about to close that door? Thank you. Okay, so now we come to the election stage, and it's, as it says there, I declare that all the committee positions vacant. And then we need to conduct an election. And the first thing to do is to call for nominations. And I'm not aware that Chris has received any nominations prior to the meeting. Right. So we call for nominations from the room. So we'll do the chairperson one first. Do we have nominations for chair?
I'll nominate Chris.
What was that, John?
I'll nominate Chris.
The chair.
Oh, sorry, no. I'll nominate you for chair.
He really lost John, Chris.
I think you know what's going on there.
I'm normally up the front a bit more, but quite see.
Okay, so I'm nominated by John Casamati and Ray Johnson. Are there any other nominations? Right, you killed in the rush there. And if I can declare, or Penny, would you like to declare?
I would be very happy to stand as chair.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, Michael's not been nominated. He's going to be busy with his wife. It's very interesting. So you might remember Michael talked about that at the last general meeting, or the EV things need to be thought about in terms of the design of the wiring, particularly. So the call for nominations for vice chair of the AEVA Tas Branch.
I nominate Charles.
I've been looked at there.
Do I have a second for Charles? Second by John Casamati. Have you set the nomination,
Yeah.
Charles? Good. The other nominations for vice chair? Okay,
Then Charles is our new vice chair.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Now it's time to call for nominations for treasurer.
I
Ray,
nominate Clive Atwater.
thank you. Move Ray, seconded Ron. Okay, are there any other nominations for treasurer? Clive, are you happy to continue as treasurer? He is.
Yes, yes, it is. So I can now proclaim Clive as our continuing treasurer.
Thank you. Well done.
Was his mute on so that he could?
It did wave at
We
us.
got a thumbs up.
Waving's very good when you're on Zoom. And time to call for nominations for secretary. Before we go any further, I hope you all read the email that the message that I sent out, saying basically Christopher's got an awful lot on his plate and we'd like that load to be shared somewhat. So Christopher's happy to continue as secretary, but we want some of the roles or tasks he's been doing to be spread around. And I'm proposing, I said in that email, that we'll have committee members, and some committee members, or possibly the vice chair, will pick up little aspects. I listed some of them in that email I sent around. So obviously, in a moment I'll call for nominations, but I want to bear in mind we're looking for people who are going to help with some of the aspects of the work that the way I talked about in that email. We've got a list of the things here again, as I said in the email. So, do I have a nomination for Christopher to continue as secretary? Yes, assistants.
I'll nominate him.
Or John, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Okay.
So I'm delighted that we have Christopher continuing as our excellent secretary.
Yes, we're very fortunate. Now, at this stage, we have to decide how many committee members we're going to have, and we do have an informal discussion first, and then we actually have a formal motion that matches the number of people who are interested in being on the committee. So you might notice we had 6 people last time. I read them out in my annual report. And so the 2 people that aren't in the room or aren't online are Shane and Julie, but Julie did say in the email she was interested. Do we have any update on that at all?
No, I remember her saying that, that's all.
Yeah. Okay. So, who's interested in being on a committee member and who's interested in picking up a bit of work to help Christopher? The items that we talked about, we're preparing article, you go through it, Christopher.
Yeah, so articles for the website. So for instance, if you have a look at our branch page, down on the right here, you've got news and articles. You can write things, write whatever you like up there, but if our website is constantly updated with current stuff, then it makes it interesting for people. And so if you have an event, it'd be great if somebody can just write a short summary about the event, take some photos, something like that. What would be really nice would be if somebody took it on as a project and said, right, I'm going to do, say, 1 article every 2 months. I might interview somebody in the club about their project or something. You could do interesting things like that. You could make it really nice if you spend some time on it, and I just don't have the time to do it.
And we could ask people for suggestions what they might like to see articles about as well. So,
That's true too. So if you sort of said, oh, this is my target, then you might have the incentive to go and ask for different things and so on. Yeah. The next one was sort of almost tied in with it. So event planning and reporting on events that have happened. So event planning, things like AEVA and so on, where there's a few things involved, including figuring out that you want to do an event, finding out if it's a good idea, inviting people along. inviting dealers and things like that as well, and then reporting on it afterwards.
But you're not going to be left in the cold doing it, because Christopher and Clive, for that matter, as well, have particularly done this a number of times. And so there's a resource there to get advice on how to do it. And talk around who's best to talk and ring up and talk to them, whatever. You're not going to be thrown cold. How to do it.
There's Facebook stuff. We've got a few people working on Facebook as well. That would also be something that would be good to have somebody who's formally supposed to be trying to do it. There's Zoom set up doing what John's doing today in Zoom, which can sort of be done from the other end of Zoom to a certain extent as well sometimes. And there's guest speakers, trying to find guest speakers. That's always a last minute thing. We think of the day before the meeting or something. Yeah, it'd be nice to have some banked up, and okay, we'll have this person and this person when we're in Burnia and so on. Okay.
So the first question is, who's interested in taking on one of those aspects? John?
You know, my time is a little bit variable that I can put into things, and I can't sort of commit to a big sort of time, sort of organising events and that sort of thing. But I'm more than happy to act as a sort of a coordinating point for putting articles up on the website and doing some myself. So if somebody wants to do an article and they don't know how to go about it, I can help out there, seeing as I've had a bit of involvement with the website. I'll still get it wrong, but we'll live and learn. And so it is, there are a few little tricky bits and that sort of stuff, but I'm quite happy to sort of be the point of contact with whoever want to put an article up, and I can probably also every now and then, like the Rivian tunnel camper kitchen thing was something I saw as I was on the net, and I thought, oh, that'll be interesting. And I grabbed a link and I shot it on the website. And my idea would be to get as many members feeling comfortable doing that, even if they say, hey, John, I found this great link. Can we have something, like, and I can put it up. Or, if they want to learn how to do it. So
You'll talk us into it. You're going to be on the committee, and you'll be the coordinating person for articles on the website. Done. Now,
Yeah.
John?
I wouldn't mind writing a few articles every now and then, keeping and maybe interviewing a few people and so on. Up until recently, my time was pretty limited because I was running a full-time business, but COVID sort of helped me sort of figure I'm probably going to retire probably full-time next year, but easing into it this year, so I can certainly apply my skills to that sort of thing and be happy to.
I didn't mention either, actually, video would be a good format too.
Yeah.
You wanted to do
Yeah.
video.
There'll be John and John then. Right,
John,
good.
John.
And a third John I'm looking at now.
Zoom into the future.
He's got to. John Clark will be a Zoom man. Okay. Now I want to put Julie's name up because she did mention in an email that she's interested in still being contributing, and exactly what she said now.
She could help out now and then again with stuff like she has been, but is happy to be on the committee as an ordinary committee person.
All right. Now, Charles is vice chair. Are you happy to sort of be a little more formally recognised as the Facebook?
I can grab a random tasks and things from Christopher as needed. Just delegate when you need to, kind of thing. Or
All right. So backing
we
up.
can discuss in more detail. Yeah.
Backing up Christopher as needed. And possibly, you do the stuff on
Social
the
media.
Facebook anyway.
They can tie into the website articles as well. So
I guess you need to teach some of us, possibly me for sure, how to do that. Those email stuff. Okay, so we've got John Fast, John Castaneda, John Part, Julie Hargraves. That's 4 people. Is there anybody else who'd like to be on the committee? You don't even actually have to have a job. You can still be on the committee. There's anything that's left on the list.
The guest speakers is the only one.
The guest
nobody's mentioned.
speakers. And again, it's keeping your ear out really, and just thinking if you come across somebody, letting Christopher know, because we do kind of think about a fortnight beforehand. Oh, when can we have this time? We've been pretty lucky actually.
We have.
Most of the time, but just wanted to take a bit more responsibility about keeping the antenna up. And even any member actually who just came across somebody probably good. Just get this to know. Is there anybody else who'd like to be on committee then? Haven't mentioned yet. Over here. Ron, do you want to continue on committee?
Oh, yes. I think we should go in there and ask each person individually.
Like, you're the Geordie Bishop test there.
Yeah.
All right, so that now means we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Which now means that we actually need a motion that the meeting agreed that there will be 5 committee members. So that motion is moved by, let's have John Fast moving that one, and Midge. Any questions, comments about that proposal? Those in favour that we have 5 committee members, please say aye. Those against, declare it carried. And this process now is a self-nomination process. So I think we can take that Ron Anderson, John Fast, John Casamati, Geordie Hargrave and John Clark are self-nominated and we've accepted their nominations. We're not letting on if there is. Welcome. Come to a nice warm room. Okay, in that case, I'll move a motion that those names as read out become the committee members. So another motion to be moved, please, by Charles and John Clark. Any discussion? Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, declare it carried. That's that one done. We're nearly there. Now, we also have to decide at this meeting who are our reps on the National Council. National Council is like the sort of the national equivalent of the branch committee. So we kind of have AEVA, then we have AEVA branches. There's states and territories, branch committees, and they meet usually on Skype or Zoom. And I'm not sure how frequently it happens. It doesn't not that often. But we need to nominate up to 3 representatives. Clive, are you going to continue to be deputy president?
I wasn't going to run this year as national vice president, so that's automatically a member of the national committee. I was proposing not to do that. One more seat to fill.
Okay. So,
No.
okay. Charles, looking at Charles as deputy chair. There's you and me. Is there anybody else interested in being on the National Council?
In theory, it's 3 people.
So what's involved?
Meetings.
Online.
So online meetings, in theory, there's a single in-person meeting at AGM.
Which is later in the year.
End of October this year in Adelaide. I'm not sure that it's going to be an in-person meeting this year. It certainly wasn't last year. And it means being across some of the things going on nationally and voting for things that might be happening one way or the other. A major thing this year will be a constitutional change, changing the structure of the organisation from what we are now to something that is hopefully legal.
Yes, there's a problem with the fact that it was incorporated in Victoria.
So Chris Nash has held a monthly meeting of the reps from each state, and that's should have 1 rep from each branch. And I have commonly done that, and Charles has seconded for me on a number of occasions. As national vice president, I've been involved with 2 or 3 times as many meetings in between times on specific issues or planning for the national conference, etc., other things that have come up, and including that reorganization. So those additional meetings are only something you would have if you were a national office holder, secretary, treasurer, president, vice president, whatever. But as a representative for the state, And the fact that we have got 3 means that only one person needs to be present once a month. And it's been a Zoom meeting.
Thank you, Clyde. John Clark has indicated interest as well. So I think we can resolve.
I note that in most states, it's been the state chair that's been, or state president that's been the rep, but it's nothing obligatory. And where there is an office holder, i.e. WA, it's Chris Jones. New South Wales, it's commonly been Michael Day because they're on the national executive anyway. So rather than having 2 people from the state, they just represent their state.
And I must confess, I very seldom join in. It's frequently not convenient the times that they choose. So we've got 3 nominations though, me, Charles and John Clark. So I think the resolve that will be the 3 reps to the National Council. And I think that concludes all that we need to do with regard to those sorts of matters. The remaining item is the budget. And Clive mentioned in his report that when we can request funds from National Council, Clive said we don't really need to do that at the moment. And if we do need to, you can do it later. It's not a obligatory thing to make a decision now. So I think we can resolve, unless you suggest otherwise, Clive, that we don't seek an amount at this time.
No, I don't have a particular amount to propose. The only thing I would ask is if people have got projects they think they would like to see happen, that we just have a discussion before the national AGM so that we can perhaps put a budget together. I believe the state government is in a mood to be very supportive if we were to run a whole bunch of try-drive days that need budget, etc. I think they would be forthcoming, but that hasn't been pursued. But I think the tone from Climate Change Office and the Premier or the Minister is very positive.
Okay, so we don't need to ask for any money at this stage then. Okay, so we'll resolve not to seek funds at this stage, noting that we can request a certain amount later on, put in a submission later on if it became necessary. Everybody happy with that, resolving with that decision? Okay, taken 40 minutes this time, I have to do it in 30. I'm going to close the meeting unless there are any other questions or comments. I'll formally close the meeting at 19:40. Thank you all for your participation and contributions to the decision making. And I'm going to go straight to the general meeting. Unless somebody needs to have a little leg stretch or something, we'll go straight into that one.
Oh, by the way, the attendance
Over there.
thing, I wonder if that could be given to John to make sure he puts all the Zoom people on. He's done, fantastic.
So we'll open the general meeting of the AEVA Tas at 1941. And again, welcome everybody again. And I've actually forgot to say, but the people who are there on Zoom, welcome you all as well. Apologies for not making it, saying it out loud before. And we're having a recording of this one. You're doing separate recordings.
One big recording.
Okay.
Are you going to chop it up afterwards, or?
No.
No? Okay.
No, that would be too much effort.
Yeah.
People can fast forward if they
Now,
want.
are we going to put apologies down?
They haven't apologised.
Oh, that's true. Okay, as I'm going to go around the room this time because there are some new people in the room, and my plan is to get this meeting done quickly so there'll be time for some coffee and biscuits and things afterwards. And I presume we've got to be out by 9:30 for the security thing again. We'll assume that. Because it's done remotely now. I don't even have to press buttons anymore, so it has to be out. Otherwise, somebody will be coming up with flashing lights. So let's go around the room. We'll start. Penny Cocker, Visible Walking, obviously now over to bed. We're going around the room.
Okay. John passed. Zoom man.
With an IT background.
Do you have a cake or?
No, not that kind of, not a Marvel superhero.
Charles Gregory.
Ray Johnson, from Manchester.
Ron Anderson. Trevor Wise from Hobart, French car enthusiast. Michael Bonning,
Bruce Hocking, 24 leaf.
Common Atkins.
Dan Bleakley, Model 3, Tesla Model 3 owner, and I run a YouTube channel called Coal Miners Driving Teslas.
We even know about
Some
you.
people have heard of it.
We have.
Michael Wardsley, an Outlander.
Penny wants to.
Chris
Kathy Craig.
David Craig.
and Ionic owners as of recently.
Mitch Jones, line 3.
Six.
Steve Hudson, new lead owner. John Clark, ice.
I'll loan you electric
But
bike.
hey,
I'll loan you an electric bike.
thank God, I like that. No, I'm actually planning to convert an ancient sort of miniature four-wheel drive into electric.
Halflinger.
Wow, big sort of Halflinger. Not the Halflinger. Haven't gotten further yet.
You mentioned that about a year ago.
I know. It was just an idea.
He's got one now.
In fact, I've got two Halflingers.
We've got two halves, does that make a whole?
No, I've got two. One whole, one.
He's got a linger.
Chris Matansky, Leaf.
John Reddix, Leaf.
404, the other half of it.
John Casimani, Tesla S.
Thank you. Right. And I should have said, I'm now owning MG. It's taken me a long time to get EVs. So, very happy about it. All right, thank you, everybody. That's a lovely run around the room and lots of conversations, hopefully after we finish the meeting. Are there any apologies, Christopher?
Yes, same ones as before. Penny, you're going to run round the screen?
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry. John, give me a nudge next time. Okay, we'll start. Oh, there's Shane and Julie. Hello, Shane and Julie. Big waving.
You'll find out when you watch the Zoom what you got nominated for in the AGM.
Congratulations. And John, I can't read John's surname there. Doesn't be. Hello, John.
John Bluedawn. I live in Wynyard, and I'm not an EV owner yet.
We all
And
have
I should mention I'm a recovered French car fanatic.
Bon Dieu. Okay, Richard Upton. Blob, Green Blob. Hello, Richard.
Chewing gum on his screen.
No.
No,
Mike Emery.
not everybody's talking.
What about you, Rose?
Tamar Valley, Northern Tasmania, 2 years Kona driver.
It's Conan.
Yes.
And of course, above Rose on the screen is Clive. And that presentation one is the.
This one?
Yeah. All right. So Mike and Richard, presumably are paying attention. Another way. What's on television right now? It's Mad as Hell stuff. Oh, no, it's not Mad as Hell yet. Okay, so the next item is a confirmation minutes from the previous meeting. Now, as I mentioned before, we didn't actually have a general meeting. No, hang on. Yes, sorry, I'm getting muddled up for last year. Our last meeting was the 26th of May here in the Milwaukee Show here at this building. And there was a very interesting set of 6 pages of minutes. And I'd like somebody to move confirmation of those minutes, please. Who's present at the meeting, one way or another. Saw John and Ray, John Fast and Ray. Any questions or comments about the minutes? Okay, no, that was John and Ray. Move confirmation of minutes, those in favour please say aye. Those against declare it carried. Business arising that's not mentioned on the agenda. So one little item that goes with the stickers to report on, and I'll do it down with that one. No business arising, none. Okay, correspondence, Christopher.
No, I don't have any to report.
Apart from the one that I sent you yesterday. Shannon, about the
Ah,
survey.
that'll be in news.
It'll be in news. Okay, none there. General business, treasurer's report. They might just say, see the AGM, will we, Clive? Okay, so we'll just make a note. that
Yes.
the report was received from the AGM.
Paid for.
Okay. Yeah, opened my eyes. News, EV grid project. I only got this email a couple of days ago. It's come out of me going to those TAS network meetings, and they want to understand better. I did print it out. Here we are. They want to gather information on our customer preferences and behaviours of distributed energy resources, distributed energy resources technology. We've just launched a new survey to better understand how and when our customers use energy storage and generation technologies such as solar PV, batteries and electric vehicles. This information will help us create our plans for the future electrical system. It's open until the 31st of August this year, and they're bribing us by saying we'll go into a draw to win one of three $50 Coles Myer gift cards. Christopher's already taken us to the link. This information will go into the minutes, and the links will be put into the minutes. I started to have a look at the survey the other day. I think it could be quite an interesting one to see what they gather up. So I'd encourage everybody to have a look at that when you get the link.
What have they asked, just how EV users?
So it has 3 sections of questions.
You've done it already?
Yeah, I've done it already. So it's on, first section is on solar.
Yeah.
Second one is on battery, home
Okay.
storage battery, and the third one is on EV. So you don't have to have any of these things. It's just asking you your current level of knowledge, and are you happy that you know or need more knowledge of what you think of them. I did notice that 2 of the questions are repeated in one of the sections. So they need a bit better checking on the thing. Yeah.
Of course, I must just point out this new tariff 93. If you've got solar, it solves several problems at once. If Tas Networks is afraid of everybody plugging their EVs when they go home, well, that's not going to work if you're on tariff 91, because you wait till 2100 during.
But then what if everybody waits till 2100?
Yes.
You get the same problem later on in the night.
Everybody owns an EV, but not necessarily, everybody, the other 500,000 people in Tasmania plugging in the kettles, for example. So, yeah, so you might get another mini peak, I guess, but not a big peak, I imagine. But I can understand the exercise. Yeah.
And it's grid to vehicle, vehicle to grid stuff's going to get them terribly excited, I think. You can manage that. So if you'd like to, please have a go at that one. And it doesn't take too long then, Christopher?
No.
Okay, so that's what I was saying. The links will be in the minutes for you to look that one up. And linked in with this, was there any question there about a community battery?
No.
Because in the last meeting I went to, it just was a couple of weeks ago, there's a problem that at the moment it's all early adopter stuff. You've got to have enough money to spare really if you want to put a battery in, or you've got a big enough solar panel, and there's the issues for Tas networks of too many solar panels in the substation area or piling on at midday with the solar electrons and so on. And then, okay, you put the battery in, how do you manage that? The economics are still not really convincing at the minute. And I actually said to the Tas networks people as part of a group discussion, have they started thinking about a community battery idea whereby you could actually buy into it, but they manage it, maybe, I don't know, have the battery at the substation or something. And so you spend less money per person to still be involved in this way of storage and getting it back and whatever. And there is some interest in that. I don't know how serious it is yet, but there's some people thinking about it anyway.
To do wonders for frequency and
yes,
voltage stability.
Yeah. That's the really big issue, the frequency control stuff. That's what really is a real threat when you've got lots of solar panels piling electricity into the grid all at once. And frequency control can be much better managed, as we know, with big batteries. And I'm sure you'll love the story about how the Tesla one in South Australia
Paid for itself in what,
a
2
year?
years or something.
But there was
Something incredible.
there was
amount,
a
yes.
brownout type issue, collapse of the network type thing in Queensland.
Yeah.
And Tesla out back at South Australia goes, Isn't physics wonderful? And put the frequency control stuff in right across the grid from there to there.
Increase
Absolutely.
the size of 50%, I believe, since the original one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Not
physics
if
in
you
action
read
is
the-
absolutely brilliant.
Not if you read the Courier Mail in Queensland.
Oh, wasn't it cold? Oh dear. So it's an opportunity to talk about that anywhere, but the idea of a community battery rather than every individual people putting batteries in their homes.
Danny, is that like grid level storage then, basically?
I suppose in a way it is, and it's ways that, for you to be a partner in it rather than
Yeah.
just being done by them. Because they've got to find a way to put the incentives in place so that we won't, even if you go to tariff 93, we won't all say start charging at 9 o'clock. And so tariff 93 is the incentive now to get people away from the end of the working day, arriving at home time. So that they're really worried about how to do this and how to encourage people. And of course, most people are set and forget. And so they've got some really challenging issues as thousands and thousands and thousands of EVs become part of your life.
They think we put it on full volume, if you like. I've got 3-phase. I rarely ever use 3-phase to charge up. I just dial it down as much as I can.
There's all sorts of clever things that need to be done, like those sorts of things, or even a staggered start.
Yeah.
Don't come in at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Yeah. So that was the EV grid project. And next in Tasmanian charges.
So the EV grid project is, that was actually a different topic.
Oh, was it?
So the EV, yeah, wrong title. So the EV grid project is the installation of the jet chargers, the free chargers. And so I had mine installed yesterday, for instance.
One of the lucky 22.
Yes.
And she flew because they had over 100 Tasmanians put into the 22.
So the grid ones.
No, so this is it's an AC charger.
Yeah.
I think it can go up to 22 kilowatt. Mine can do up to 6 because of my connection. So I've got a 32 amp circuit breaker in the garage, so it can't. If it did 7 kilowatts, it'd trip that if I plugged in the fridge. So we've limited it to 6, and they can control. So Tas Networks can control when and how much power it delivers. And so, as Charles was saying before, they will do a number of trials over the next, is it 1 year or 2 years?
It's over 1 year from when they're all installed nationally, so from September.
Right. So over that 1 year, there will be a number of individual trials where they might say, can you please have your car plugged in at this time, and we will dial down the electricity or turn it off altogether or whatever. And they'll basically play with it and see how that affects things from their end. They'll also be able to tell, I think, exactly when and how much I'm charging. In our case, we probably won't use it very often because it can't charge very slowly, and we like to charge slowly off the solar. So we might not actually be using that for most of our charging. It also is fed from our battery, so we're not necessarily taking it in from the grid. So all of these things that they need to figure out, that people will do weird things. Yeah, so we can be using electricity, but they're not supplying us in it. We could be using electricity while supplying them electricity. It's all very strange. Yeah, so mine was installed. I think there was some more to be installed still. Degree C did mine yesterday.
Sorry for jumping the gun there, Christopher.
That's right.
Right, so there's 2 things we just talked about. Are there any other questions or comments about that one? All right, the next thing on the agenda then is the Tasmanian charges.
Unless there's any other news. I'm just checking other news on here. Also on here, so on the website, we've got that survey there, and then we've got somebody recently put in, you can put in your own postcode and see how many EVs are registered in your postcode. So that's quite interesting. Or is it sold? Statistics never right. You have to look at it to see exactly.
It's an underestimate anyway.
Right. I put up an article. So there's the Rivian tunnel camper that John put up. I put one up for modifying vehicles in Tasmania. I've had a few questions lately of how do you get your vehicle if you convert? You've got to modify. You got to get a blue plate to get it registered, and how do you go through that process? And so it's very confusing in Tasmania. And so I couldn't figure it out when I went to the website, so I rang up the department and we figured it out, and I wrote an article on it to say, this is what you've got to do. It's not very difficult when you actually figure it out, but their website is very difficult to navigate. Okay, so that was all of my news. I do wonder if Charles has any news.
Indeed, Charles.
Is there already mentioned in the agenda there the stamp duty rebate?
I'll
That
mention that.
started, has it?
Yeah.
I mentioned that in the annual report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Legislation's been passed, so it's from 1 July.
Yeah, I think most of the dealers that are advertising on Facebook are saying that it's now active, and I think the Tesla design page
Yeah,
now,
so
I mean, stamp duty as of a few days ago, so.
I just went.
How
How
much
much is it? Is it percentage of the cost?
EV and the legislation passed Parliament day, the last day of the financial year, hasn't received royal assent at all May now. Service Tas therefore hadn't updated their systems because technically the law still said it was charges. So when I bought my leaf last 2 weeks ago, they actually had to leave it registered to the dealer, and Service Tas were going to hold on to the transfer papers and wait until everything went through and then manually process the transfer papers. So that they weren't quite ready, like they're backdated to the 1st of July, but the voter registry system, because of the roll of assent and all that, hadn't been done.
How much is it? Is it percentage of the cost?
It's stamp duty, transfer duty or stamp duty, which is 4% of the not the purchase price, because that includes like on-road costs and stuff. It's the, so like my leaf has I think it's $49,000, and then the on-road is like an extra $1,000.
Isn't it excluding GST though?
It includes GST.
Previous media release said that average out about $2,000.
Yeah, that'd be about right for a $50,000 car.
Yeah,
That's good.
So,
That's $2,000 worth of petrol.
okay, anything else, Charles? News?
That was it, I think, for that.
Okay. All right, now Tasmanian charges then. Ask Clark to talk about that one. Or?
He's been in the state, has he?
Well, I could repeat what I said in the AGM reports, but
Clark's off mute. You're off mute, Clark. You want to talk?
I'm off mute. Yeah. Well, I've been absent, but and I wasn't at the last meeting. But I think most of the action had happened by then, except perhaps the Tesla charger opening happened after then. I'm not trying to remember the date. So we've now got 19 fast charge sites in the state. There are more committed in funding, some of which haven't been announced. There was the proposal for some fast chargers in the Greater Hobart area, which will proceed, but formal announcements are pending from the funding agency, so we can't really say much more about it. And as Penny mentioned in her annual report, President's report, the state government's committed to further funding regional areas of the state, as has ARENA, but that hasn't gone out as a program. So if you ask me to guess, I'd say there will be over 40 sites by the end of next year, and they're well and truly covering regional areas as well as the urban areas. But some of that's we can't be specific about just yet.
I mentioned that the Westbury one opened since the last meeting.
Aha.
We use it.
I used it last yesterday. It works.
I noticed the layout of that one. I don't know if you want to bring it up on Bleakley, but the layout is different to the others. It's sort of two bays, one in front of the other.
Yeah, sideways. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and the
Now, how did we do that? That was a
TV.
yeah, it's a
Remote. Well, Christopher's been out, I can talk. The two bays, one in front of the other, and the chargers are on the same side, but at the front of one stall and the back of the other. So no matter which car you have, there'll be a direction and a way you can park, so you can plug in. I know some of the other ones were a bit tricky with some models, but I think it's also handy if the charger isn't being used and you're towing something, you can drive through. I think there was someone using the other day to tow some kayaks or something like that. There's a picture on there.
I noticed a Tesla with a trailer using the Swansea charger, and it basically had to park out
Famous
on the
Captain?
street.
Yeah.
You click on the picture. So take you into the pictures, just click on the picture.
Well, I'm pleased that nobody's saying had a
Oh,
bad
there we go.
experience.
Yeah.
There we go. That shows the layout there.
Oh, yeah. So it's actually a square parking bay, is it?
Yeah, picture's a bit compressed.
It's just like a little drive-through, really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the two before they're
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that kind of flows on.
What would be nice would be if manufacturers would just choose a location for charge points on their vehicles consistently.
Yes. Oh, we had to say, when we installed our jet charge thing the other day, we decided to put it at the other end of the garage because all our power points were on the end for our previous car, which is at the back, and the new car's at the front.
It's probably also worth mentioning, when Christopher and I saw that one just being finished, it was on our way back from the opening of the Tesla supercharger, which I don't think was mentioned in our last meeting. Has it been since then?
Yes, it was mentioned that it was coming up
Yeah,
a week from the last meeting, so it was on the 3rd, I think.
That's right. Yeah, so that was the first version 3 supercharger installed by Tesla in Australia. There's since been 3 more opened, I think, on the mainland. So the first in Tassie and the first version 3 in Australia. So there's 3 stalls at the Spirit of Tasmania terminal. They can go up to 250 kilowatts per stall. I don't know how many cars have actually achieved that since they've been installed. You did?
Oh, I charged when I came over on the boat, but I was only getting around 100 kilometers an hour.
Oh, okay.
But they should be getting 1,500 kilometers an hour or something like that.
So 50 kilograms.
How far up do you already charge? Were you pretty low?
I was probably about half charged. So it should have, I mean, I've been on version 2 charges around the country and been getting 800 kilometers an hour plus. So I'm not sure, maybe I got it on a bad day or something, but yeah.
I suppose it's hard to navigate to it when you're just going off the boat. I guess it's hard to precondition and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that could be it as well.
I note that the, am I on? No.
Yes.
Yep.
Now you've turned yourself on.
Unmute.
I note that the use of the Devonport charger that EHT operates hasn't changed substantially since the Tesla charger opened. That's possibly in part a reflection that we have a lot of non-Tesla users, but I haven't tried to track to see whether the Tesla users have changed dramatically.
And I saw a story today saying that the Tesla superchargers in year 2 are going to be available for non-Tesla cars.
Yeah, there's I think there was a few news stories which came out from an Elon Musk tweet, so it's just a one-liner, it becomes a news story.
All right.
That there's a lot of what's the way to say it? Not the things he says aren't always timely or entirely. They're very speculative. They show his intentions, not necessarily what's going to happen. But yeah, it's a possibility in Australia because the superchargers all use CCS2, which is what almost all other EVs use. So I guess watch this space, but I'm guessing there'll be lots of limitations, like they might only accept vehicles which can charge at over 100 or 150 kilowatts, because they don't want a slow car hogging the space for hours when a fast car is using it. Maybe.
All right. Any other questions or comments about chargers, EV chargers in Tassie? I've noticed there don't appear to be any complaints about Campbelltown recently, so that's been more stable now, presumably.
I'll often check the recently used sites in Tassie on PlugShare, and there'll always be 7 or 8 check-ins a day throughout the state in different cars, different sites, and stuff like that. So they're all being used.
Is there any move
Hang on,
towards,
sorry, John.
is there any move towards having a single access for the 3 different?
You mean the credit card reader type idea? You want to comment, Clive?
Well, our credit card readers initially were not easy to use. They had a lousy interface, and yet they still represented about 5% of our users. which surprised me. I thought it'd be less than that because they were almost unusable. They're now have been upgraded. They've got some new interfaces, which should be quite easy. So that's an interesting thing to track. We're pretty much the only people in the country that are using credit card readers with our chargers. And when I traveled around, I loaded up at least 2 more apps. So I think I'm up to 5 or 6 now for various providers. 5 years ago, I tried to get people who were starting up networks to talk to each other and agree, and nobody was interested. They said, oh no, we got to establish our system before we're going to make them all talk to each other. And I was saying, no, establish it so that they talk to each other to begin with, but people just didn't want to do it. It'll come. I suspect it's probably 2 to 3 years before it gets serious.
Thank you. John Beck.
Okay, so one of the things that keeps going around in my mind about charging is the sort of relative economics of how many cars want to be charged, how fast, and how much power can we get to that spot in time. And has anybody been mapping that or planning it out, looking at what the demand might be and what power infrastructure has to do? And are there other, like one of the things that occurs to me is that inductive charging might be something that could be more easily implemented, where you just have to park on the spot and your car will charge up and you can have a lot more of them around, for example. But these days with petrol vehicles, you can go to a servo, fill up in a minute or so, and electric vehicles, I think one of the issues that people see with them is, apart from the range anxiety thing, is it takes forever to charge them up and you can't just quickly drop in somewhere and charge it. Is there any movement going on in researching that area, or?
I'll hand all that to Clive.
I was about to say something.
Yeah, that's part of our business modeling for EHT, is to look at all that stuff. And we do have a very clear framework for it. We know the reality is sensible people will charge at home if they can. I say that there's the exception is if one of the car companies has agreed to pay your first year or 2 of charging at fast chargers, then you charge at public fast chargers because it's free. That's distorting, but that will go away in a few years. But no, we know roughly how much power is needed. We know how much each site can deliver. We know what the peak charging rates of vehicles are at different chargers, but we also know the average is much lower, and that's consumer behavior driven. And we know how that will likely change as reliability and convenience of chargers changes. I find, in fact, the time isn't an issue. So I came back off the ferry yesterday morning, had about 125 kilometers range, dropped into Westbury because it was about time for a coffee, plugged in while I had my coffee, didn't care how much I got. I just got whatever I got, continued on and thought, oh, I need a toilet break at Campbelltown. So I plugged in, went to the toilet, didn't even get a coffee, came back, said, yeah, that's enough. Went down the road a bit further and said, oh, I wonder what they're doing at Kempton with their renovations. I might drop in there and have a look. Didn't need to charge, but plugged in while I had a poke around, came out and got home with 15%. Yeah, it's a different rhythm. Now I've got a weak bladder, so I stop a lot anyway, but frankly, it didn't slow me down. I would have made probably a couple of those stops at least anyway. Each time you stop, you're adding anywhere from 50 to 100 kilometers of range, maybe more. If you stop for lunch, which I didn't, you add heaps. So once the chargers are there, I never charge past 80% because I can't be bothered waiting when it's charging slowly. So I tend to probably stop more often, but I'll charge faster on average than people who come to EHT sites and charge to 90 and 95 and 100. And I kind of go, why would you wait that long? But there you are. People are changing their behavior. We're seeing a change of pattern in our sites already. People aren't charging to the same extent. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that there are more chargers around and people are confident that they are working most of the time. But yes, all the numbers have been done. If they're not something we're particularly keen to share, some of it's got commercial value. but the broad framework I'm happy to share.
And Tas Networks, of course, is always interesting because when you start putting in charge of the first organisation you've got to talk to is Tas Networks and just find out what power there is on site, what has to be done.
Yeah,
Wasn't it a different mindset, but you love it, were.
I realise that, yeah, but I'm looking at,
Top up to where you're going plus 10% or so.
yeah, but we're looking at, you know, there's talk out in the political sphere of,
Yeah.
you know, banning ICE cars and having all electric cars. And I go, oh God, how's that going to work? Because you're going to have the whole population all trying to charge.
Yeah.
It really isn't a problem. There's a lot of concern for nothing. And I mean, Tasmania is unusual because we've got a very high industrial share of our total electricity supply. But I don't think that if it's done in a measured way, it should be a problem. There's enough power deliverable to households to do the vast majority of the amount of charging. If you've got solar, you charge in the daytime. If you've got any sense at all in your home, if you've got off peak, you charge at night. If you don't have either of those, then you charge when you want, too bad. But even there, it's not hard to do things like limiting peaks. The other thing is vehicle to grids coming. And that's going to basically batteries on wheels. I mean, my little old Leaf's equivalent to 4 Tesla Powerwalls. Woo! Yeah, it gives you a lot of flexibility. It's just a case of setting a set of rules and incentives that make that attractive to do something sensible rather than something dumb. And that really isn't hard. Well, it shouldn't be. The other thing is, you talked about induction. I think that's appropriate for taxis, probably appropriate maybe for some kinds of bus type transport, etc., where the driver needs to be able to go in a hurry. What will happen with public fast chargers and even perhaps AC chargers less quickly? The tech's already there, it just hasn't all been rolled out, and that is that you plug in like a Tesla does, and it knows who you are, and it just sends you a bill. It doesn't need you to have a card. It doesn't need you to have an app. You need to register once with that network, but once the network knows you, when you plug into their equipment, it recognizes your vehicle, and that's it. You just plug in and walk away. And that will improve performance and convenience. It's not the same as being a universal thing. You'll have to register with each network you use, but that's not that hard. So yeah, hopefully there won't be too many to register with. And I think the interoperability between networks where you can register centrally with one organization and they'll put you into all the other networks in the country won't be that far away.
Okay, good discussion. All right, looking at the clock, I think we'll keep us moving. Ray, did I steal your thunder a bit when I talked in the annual report about long-distance conversion? Was there an update?
Oh, yes, it was pretty good until we had a little accident. Yes. So later people can have a look at what an exploded motor control looks like. It's got a lot of black soot on it. And so we had to find $1,500 for a new controller.
Oh dear.
But otherwise, it's good.
Do you know why it happened?
We're not quite sure exactly how it happened. Suddenly the motor went to full revs. Unfortunately, it wasn't in gear. And then there was a big bang, a big flash, and everything stopped.
Oh dear, that was exciting.
Yeah, well, it was pretty upsetting.
Yeah. Goodness, all right, well.
So we haven't done anything since.
No, it's went to the pub.
Yeah, run away. Can't afford to do that.
Right, okay, I'll draw a sad face for that.
Sad
Sad face. Hobart Conversions Group, is there anybody able to talk about that?
Bring up the hand.
Okay.
No, I didn't get a report.
didn't you mention, Chris, whether there was somebody else in Hobart that was doing the conversion?
Yes, yes. So there's a conversions group. There's a couple of people working in Hobart doing conversions.
And there was a young woman doing this.
That was before. Yeah, she started one for her honours project and now she's finished her honours and now it's trying to finish off. Yeah, so she's one of the ones doing one of the ones in the group. Yeah, there was a report last time. I haven't heard anything since then. It is winter though. It's not great.
No, it's not. Okay, now education outreach is a standard item we never talk about.
Has anybody done any education outreach?
EV owners kit is a,
I have got one thing just to, I'll pass it round. When I was last at Mitsubishi in Launceston, I picked this up, which is just a little pamphlet on how to use your plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. And I'll pass it round because I think this is the kind of thing that we're talking about with the EV owners kit. So this one's specific to an Outlander, but it tells you how to charge it up and, you know, all sorts of simple stuff, not complicated, but the questions you want to have answered. So I'll stop at that, but I'll pass this around. So do you want to start there, John?
right, thank you, Ray.
Yeah.
Right, National AEVA, Global EV Alliance, it must be you, Christopher.
The Global EV Alliance was launched. It is what it says on the box. It's an alliance of organisations like this. And so if you follow that link, then you'll find a lovely little video of their launching with people from all over the world, including our national president, reading out a script where they're saying this is the goals of the National EV Alliance. It's all very lovey-dovey. And the other one there is the membership auto review option. So we've turned on the website where you pay your membership that you can now tick a box to say auto renew. So if you can't figure out how to do it, you've only got to figure it out once now, and then you turn that on and it'll automatically do it. We are hoping that will keep our members for longer, because some people don't get the emails, or the email go to spam or something when it tells you you're up for renewal. But we've got high hopes for that.
Does that, does that take into account the change of your credit card?
Credit card. That's a very salient question. And because we don't know, we have set up a test membership. And so Chris Jones, the National Secretary, has a membership that costs him 50 cents every week. And his credit card expires this month, I think.
Oh, there you go.
So he's going to see what happens when it auto renews the week after. So yeah, it is via credit card, so we assume it will throw some kind of error, but we want to know what that looks like, so that then when people say, "Oh, I got this email, what does it mean?" It'll then. Yeah.
So just on membership, is that due? That's due now, I would presume.
It's due 12 months from when you first joined.
So it's a rolling one. isn't
Oh,
it?
I see.
Not a date.
Can't remember when I first joined. Now.
So it might be worth
Give me about a year.
popping on the website.
I will.
There is a reminder thing that comes out, but the system went a bit silly, well, at least for me.
Yes, that was because the service we use to send our emails changed their policy, and certain people with emails with service providers who don't update their software, such as you, weren't compatible with the changes that were made.
So I lapsed and I didn't go.
Give me a reminder.
We're the only one.
Yeah, I think we're
Well,
number
not
4.
There were. Yeah, I found everybody in Tasmania, but I couldn't find everybody nationally.
We must have called it something. All right, good. So next time when people go to renew their membership, they'll have a tick the box for auto renewal.
There is a tick box, yes.
All right, any questions or comments on that? I'll try and keep us moving. The next one is designed for stickers. Now, one bit of this item then is about the triangle. Those of you who've recently bought a car, an EV, should have on your number plate a little blue triangle that says EV. I got my car in March and the guy said to me, here it is, do you want to put on the metal? And I thought, foolishly actually, it turned out said no. So I have a little blue ordinary type sticker stuck on my number plate. And then somebody raised the issue at the last meeting about them, because are we all supposed to have them? They've got an old EV, I say an old EV. Well, how do we go about getting it? Because there's been nothing. Anyway, so I've done
number plate, for example.
yeah, so I've done the research, and it's only a law that came into effect, and it only goes back to cars at the beginning of last year or something. So people who've got EVs won't be covered by it. So you can buy them for $5.50 from TACC. for that price, I don't know whether we want me to, or ask AEVA to get a bunch in, and you just buy them from Christopher or the treasurer and put it on your car. But the important thing really in the discussion that came out was that I sort of said to the guy I was talking to, I talked to the state government guy first, and then the TACC, is typical outsourcing in these days. And I said how I didn't get the metal put on my car because it had to be pop riveted on. And I don't think they didn't want to do it basically, and I just didn't twig. It's important to have the metal because if there was a bit of a fire, otherwise not a really, really serious big fire, the sticker might burn off. But if the first responder can see a little metal triangle on the number plate, they know there's something to worry
And
about.
the legislation says it must be metal.
Right.
Well,
So-
speaking as a first responder, they tried that with the LP gas conversions, that they had the little red sign that said LP gas.
Yeah.
And what they found with stickers was that people would stick them on their number plate, and then for one reason or another, they would change the registration, like moves interstate. They'd get new number plates, they'd throw the old one away, and they'd lose the sticker. So there was no particular way of transferring that across, and no one knew how to get a new one.
But with a metal one, you can drill out the pop rivet.
You
and put
drill
on a
out the
new one.
pop rivet, you put it on. So that's the flexibility that comes from that. So when we turn up to a vehicle fire, that's the sort of thing that we're looking for. And to know that you've got an EV, even if it doesn't have all the electric decals and stuff all over it, you know you've got that.
So that little metal triangle is really quite important, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's as important as the actual colour of EV blue or
Yeah.
LPG red or whatever.
Yeah. So being able to identify what you're approaching, we do our best to find out before we get there. Like we'll talk to FICOM and say, okay, what are we going to? And they'll say from the registration number, if it's known, what make and model it is and how to get occupants out and all of that sort of stuff, but not necessarily what the hazards are.
See, that's another issue because I've actually not knowing whether it's an EV or not because they weren't recording it. And 18 months ago, Rob Valentine, member for Legislative Council of, we asked him to ask the question and he got the answer. And they basically said they were working on it. They'd hoped to change the database process by the end of last year. So I actually came across, I keep all these emails and went and found it. So I sent it to Rob and said, it's time to ask these questions again, isn't it? So he's going to, but of course they're in recess at the moment. But at the moment, I'm not sure that the motor registry actually knows that the car's an EV. Certainly the board, but less recently.
You'll know the model, but the model isn't definitive. So my Subaru Brumby is not petrol, it's electric.
Yeah.
You'll only know that from a.
Well, they'll know the number of cylinders. So if it's got 0 cylinders.
You couldn't enter
You
zero.
can't put 0. So I had to put 4 on my Subaru Brumby. My electric Subaru Brumby has 4 cylinders according to the registration.
Whoa, that's impressive.
We've got one with 1 cylinder, the conversion.
So I don't know if that's changed since because that was 2013 when I did it.
So Rob's going to ask the question again. So by the end of the year, hoping for another answer. So we'll see what they come up with. But I think we should make an effort to get the little blue triangles on our EVs. So either we put something in the minutes and maybe put something up on the web page. It's up to people. Ring up TACC, pay you $5.50, whatever, or we get some in and then people give us money. But I think the important thing is, and having a first responder here is very nice to make the point, everybody, no matter the age of the car, should have that triangle on their car.
Because we certainly don't want to turn up and start spraying water onto 400 volts DC.
Definitely
It's
not.
fun, no.
So let people think about that one.
Where would it go?
On the number plate.
Actually on the number plate.
So that's irrespective of the comment just now, that number plate being thrown off.
Yeah, so, and it has to be pop, we've got to have a pop rivet, so you might have to get someone to do it if you don't have a pop rivet gun yourself.
See if you can remember on the way out, you'll see cars out there with the lot.
My dealer did it on my second service. I didn't have one originally.
Yes.
Then my second service, I got it back and it was like, oh, it's a new thing on there.
Okay,
Okay.
right.
It was actually riveted on, it's not a sticker, it's actually
Yeah.
riveted on. Yeah.
You have one at the back and one at the front.
I think so.
Yeah.
On the
Well,
actual number plate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mine's not.
they take, yeah, we both got old cars, so it wasn't in
No,
But I just got my number plate recently. There was no talk of that.
no, I don't think it's been properly publicised at all, so we might make an effort about that as well.
can't understand why a stick on would not be still useful. Let's say on the window screen, on the window. So people
Yeah,
can
it
recognise.
is.
Because if it's an end-to-end smash, you know,
Might be a
nobody has
certain-
trouble, you want to be able to see it.
There's something on the top is up on the top of the
Off on the
screen.
windscreen on the left
So
side.
the number plate is where the first responders have to look
I-
anyway.
I understand that, yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, just could be for the normal pundit walking up to a car, but.
By the time we get to cars, there's usually not a windscreen to look at.
So,
Yeah, right. Don't even think about it.
So I suppose you're hoping, though, in those cases, cars don't get damaged both front and back.
Yeah.
So that one or the other will see it. All right, let's just click on that one. We'll talk about perhaps after the meeting or at the next meeting, let's see how we want to handle that. Any other sticker things to talk about, Christopher?
No, the other part of that was last time I said, does anybody have any designs for stickers? Because several people had asked me, we should make new stickers, and nobody's presented any designs to me, so that's good.
is there a sticker for the association? Yeah, is that what you're talking about?
That's right, yes. And basically I was saying any kind of stickers for any kind of purpose. But so at the moment we have a sticker that says my next car will be electric. But it might be nice to have an AEVA sticker, for instance.
Except nobody knows what it means.
Yeah, or just a sticker that's a little bit of a pun on words or.
All right, think about it.
Yeah,
You're not-
all those sorts of
you've
things.
got the job, think about it.
Another electric car.
Yeah.
Yep.
So people sometimes say to me, yes, you should have something, but I'm no good at designing.
My other
like that.
car's
So
an EV.
if anybody designs something, we'll almost certainly print it.
Right, I'm going to keep this moving now because it's this speaker gets as well. So the national webinar, that was just, in July, wasn't it? Just the other week. That's good.
July, yes, that's right.
Anyway, did you watch it then, or anybody watch it?
Yes, I watched it.
I started to, but I didn't have
No,
time to
really
sit on the computer.
Is it worth watching?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's the true mobility, talking about.
Yeah, look, this fella's really switched on. It's going to change the landscape of EVs in Australia. There's no doubt about it. It's bringing in cars comparable to petrol ones, which are actually cheaper, and they've got all the benefits of the EV. It's a no-brainer. People are just going to look at the proposition and say, well, what am I doing with anything?
You see the BYD guy.
Yeah.
So follow the link in the minutes.
All right, upcoming events, both in non-system, more showing off car type ones. Christopher.
Yes, so update. So last time we did a big report on the Launceston show, not much to report since then. We're probably at the point where we should start to think of who do we want to partner at the Launceston show. So we'll be giving test drives in our vehicles around the track, and there'll be a spot stationary there where we can have dealers and related businesses and so on to talk to the people who are coming for their rides. So if you have any ideas of businesses that we should invite, so they will be paying a fee to the Launceston show to be there, to display their wares in an EV friendly area at Launceston show. Remember, it's at Quercus where Eggfest is, so completely different Launceston show than normal central place, more or less, to the state. It should be huge.
What do you want from members?
Yeah, keep an eye out. Think about businesses. If you have a business and that you know, feel free to approach them. Talk to me if you actually have. Yes, this is somebody who wants to come. Whatever, we can give them a package or put them in contact with the Launceston show who can give them a package. Very reasonable rates. The Sustainable Living Festival is the next day, and we have committed to a static show at the Sustainable Living Festival. Let me just share this screen again. For the people at home, so the Sustainable Living Festival is at Windsor Park. They have a good website at the moment, and on here is an aerial view of where they're going to be. So they will have indoor stalls for people like schools and governments and things like that. So the boring things will be inside, and then out over under there. And so outdoors, this will be food and games and things like that. And we have this corner up here for a static show. So what I'm hoping is if people are bringing their cars up for Eggfest, they might think about staying for the weekend for the Sunday, I think, which is, yes, sorry, for the show, the Electric Car at the show, which is on the Thursday, and then the Sustainable Living Festival is on the Saturday. Because the Launceston show is Thursday, Friday, Sustainable Living Festival is Saturday.
So we're going to be there for one day on the Electric Car.
Yes, only on the Thursday. And so then you have the day off and come along on Friday for the thing here, which is a static thing. They offered us being able to take drives around there as well, but I thought, no, that's too much to organise. It's so close to Launceston show.
Where's Windsor Park?
Good question. Riverside, so down the end of Eccleston Road. Come in and go on the next step. Yeah, I'd never been there before. I drive past it every time we go to Launceston, but I've never been down there. Yeah. When I was there, they had school carnival on there.
Okay, good. All right.
There when I was a kid.
Right, so if you can help with either of those two, talk to Christopher. Okay, that concludes the scheduled items on the agenda, or the listed items on the agenda. We're now going to turn to our guest speaker. Before we do that, any other questions or comments, anything we've been through on the agenda so far? Okay.
Meeting dates. Our meetings at the moment are every 8 weeks. Now, because we use Zoom and other branches use Zoom, and there's only one Zoom account for AEVA, we sometimes clash. And so this meeting, we are on the third Wednesday, and there are 2 other AEVA clubs that have meetings on the third Wednesday. So we occasionally coincide with those.
No problem.
It could be if they wanted to use Zoom. So South Australia and Queensland. Queensland have their own Zoom because they clash with South Australia. South Australia don't actually use Zoom because they don't have internet access where they are. But if South Australia's decided to use Zoom and they correspond with us, then we'd need to get our own. So I'm wondering whether we should change to, I looked on the website and the second Wednesday in the month is free at the moment. There's no clubs have their meeting on that particular Wednesday. I'd ask the people here, does anybody care?
Well, what we'll do then, we'll work out what those dates would be, and we'll bring them to the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, good. However, our next meeting now is here on September the 22nd this year.
Yes,
here. Okay, anything else? Right, do you want to introduce our guest?
Charles, would you like to introduce our guest speaker? Daniel.
Cool. Well, I spent a bit of time on Twitter, as some of us might do here, and I posted a few comments about EVs in response to one of Daniel's tweets a few weeks ago. He messaged me and said, "Oh, thanks for that. I'm actually in Hobart at the moment." I said, perfect. So I invited Daniel along. He runs a YouTube channel, which I think I'll let Dan introduce how it got started. There's a bit of a story there, but yeah, he's lives in Melbourne, has been to Mackay in the last couple of months, and now down in Tassie, so he's doing a bit of a tour of the country, it seems. So I'll let Daniel tell us all about his channel and what he does.
Just stand here.
If you want, or turn the chair around, sit down if you'd rather.
I can stand, that's
You
fine.
can even zoom in.
Yeah, thanks for having me tonight, and thanks, Charles, for reaching out and bring me along tonight. Really appreciate it. I haven't prepared anything like properly, but I thought I'd go through who I am, where I'm from, and how I came to be an electric vehicle advocate, I guess, through my channel. It sounded like a few people have already heard of the channel. Has anyone not heard of it? Yeah.
I'm looking forward to writing down the reference. I've heard it.
Oh,
It'll be in the
guy with a big hat.
It'll be in the
there's a guy who has a famous big hat who was in the car. He didn't have it in the car, which I was devastated about. But he did put it on when we got out. So I've got some a PDF up there as well, just with a few things. So I was actually born in Mackay in central Queensland, and but I grew up in a town called Clermont, which is about 300 kilometres west of Mackay. It's a small town. It's got 2,000 people, and it's in the Bowen Basin, which is a really massive coal mining area in central Queensland. It became famous a few years ago because Bob Brown's convoy ended in my hometown. And you may have seen footage of the convoy coming into town. There's a pub in the background and there's a group of angry locals waving their fists. Yeah, well, my father was in that crowd. And my father runs a petrol station in my hometown, and my uncle runs the largest fuel distributorship in central Queensland. And myself and my two brothers have at some stage worked in the local coal mine as well. So I'm from quite a hydrocarbon intensive family. I studied engineering at Queensland University of Technology and started in 2001, and worked in the oil industry in Scotland briefly as well as an engineer. The last 10 years I've run a printing company in Melbourne, so I've stepped away from engineering. I've been interested in climate change for about 20 years, and I wrote my first letter to a politician in 2001 in Queensland, and I got some rubbish response back then, and things just haven't really changed. 2 years ago, I decided to get into activism, which was the first time for me. The reason I did that was because I've read a lot of the reports that are coming out, and I'm deeply concerned about where we're heading with the climate crisis, and I wanted to lend my body and my mind to helping to advocate for rapid change in our society. So I joined Extinction Rebellion in Melbourne, and we had a week of action a few years ago called the Spring Rebellion, and we were blocking roads, major roads coming into town, and doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And we just go back one there. That last one, that's a 10-day hunger strike that I did on the steps of Victoria's Parliament House 2 years ago. Generated quite a lot of media through that. The next one, I was arrested at Siemens' office in Melbourne. I glued my hand to their front window to protest Siemens' involvement in the construction of the rail line to the Adani mine. I was arrested by these police officers, that one on either side of, you can see there, took me in for an interview. Once they conducted the interview, they switched off the recorder and said that we really appreciate what you guys are doing out there. And we're going to get you out of here as quick as we can. And 2 hours later, I was out, and there was 6 or 7 police officers that lined up to see me out. And that's where we're at in Australia at the moment, is that the police officers are with us, like they're on board, they've got families just like we do, and they care about this as well. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of activism over the last couple of years, and coming from my hometown in Clermont, a lot of my old schoolmates see these posts online and they read articles in the newspaper, and they think that activists like me are against them as a coal mining community. So it's created a lot of tension within my family and within my community. And I've owned an EV for about 18 months. And about 3 months ago, I decided to go on holidays to my hometown, which I hadn't been back for a few years. And I drove my Tesla Model 3 Performance back to my hometown. And I had the idea of just trying to get a lot of my friends and family into the car. My brother works at a coal mine in the region, and he took it over for a week on a swing. And I just said to him, if you take a few of your workmates for a ride, just film their reactions, because I'd love to see, how they respond. And so he did. And if we just go, I'm not sure.
Impressive, absolutely impressive.
Yeah. Now the video, I think that's the last one. Yeah, the video I've got there as well. Now, just before we play this, there's a lot of swearing in this video, so I hope everyone's okay with that. Yeah.
Never heard it before.
That's his compilation.
Compilation, yeah, that's it.
I don't know if I've got sound. Oh, we don't.
I hear the swearing.
Yeah,
You all
just have to lip read.
Sorry. I haven't set it up for sound. I didn't know.
I can possibly just put the sound on my laptop if you like.
We're providing
I can put this on for the sound if you like.
Yeah.
Could have started at 37.
You want to start again? Or
Start
where are
37
you?
seconds. We'll do this next one.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
37.
Get the clapperboard out and sing him.
37. All right. Go. It's in the choir. It's in the cane fields in the background.
What do you think of that?
I try to get a lot of high vis because I know ScoMo loves. This guy owned the fastest V8 in town. Cold as well.
Oh, that's beautiful acceleration, eh? So fucking wide too.
That's gas. Used to operate a drag line at a coal mine. Oh, okay. So actually, she drives a haul truck at a coal mine. There it is. Okay. This is Bob Cutter. Yeah.
That's 0 to 100 in about 3.3 seconds.
Sarah Hanson Young.
Oh my God. Far out. Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah. And the corners. That's awesome. Oh. There's nothing like it, huh? Oh my gosh. Wait till we come on the freeway and we won't come to a full stop. I can become very addicted to that. It's very addictive. Very addictive.
So that's it. So Sarah Hanson Young actually has driven that car faster than anyone else. Can everyone keep a secret?
Yeah, I saw it was blurred out.
Sorry?
I saw the speedo was blurred out.
Yeah, we had to blur out the speedo.
Because you did want to compromise it.
Yeah, you can come and ask me later, but she was she was going pretty quick. I was freeway.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just between us.
I never heard anything.
Yeah, good. But, yeah, but I mean, it just drives so well. But yeah, so the channel kind of took off when we had an article in the Guardian and a whole bunch of other media. And then there was also, you got a mention in the New Yorker as well, which was pretty massive. And then from there, we were able to get a whole bunch of politicians into the car. So we had 4 senators and Bob Catter and Helen Haynes, the independent for Indi as well. So 6 federal politicians in the car in the last couple of months.
But do you think that'll make a difference?
I think so, yeah. I honestly believe that a lot of people, and I was talking to Charles about this on the way here, as EV owners, we sometimes assume that everybody knows what we know about EVs, but actually, like even Sarah Hanson Young, who's a Greens politician, was completely blown away by the drive. So it really is about getting bums in seats with the EV revolution. And that's what we're about to enter. It is an electric vehicle revolution. It's an industrial revolution. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we should all be extremely excited about that and campaign hard for that because, you know, we all love electric vehicles for there's so many different reasons, but the thing that really excites me is the prospect of living in cities with pure clean air and peaceful streets. I think that's going to be a complete game changer for humanity. And when you think about it, there's not a human alive on the planet today who hasn't been breathing in diesel particulate and carbon monoxide every single day of their lives. So you have to go back more than 100 years to the last time our cities had actual like, clean air. So I'm really excited about that, and that's what keeps me going every day. And yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's quite a few million people that succumb to illnesses and death from air pollution, from vehicle emissions.
Yeah, I've heard it's 7 million globally, and we always talk about deaths, but we never talk about people who don't die but they suffer.
And asthma or one day.
Leukemia is linked to diesel particulate, emphysema, and cognitive impairment. There was a study done in the US of children, 20,000 school kids who take those big yellow diesel buses to school.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And these kids had on average a 6-point lower IQ than kids who don't. And so if you imagine the effect that this is having on our society, the cognitive effect on like the effect on our intelligence as a society that this diesel particulate is having, it will be a complete game changer when we get 100% clean air in our cities. It'll change politics. It'll remove oil money out of governments around the world, lobbyists.
So they'll have to be doing lithium money instead.
Yeah, well, potentially, but I mean, lithium's not consistently extractive like fossil fuels are. You just need to keep ripping fossil fuels out of the ground.
The process of generating lithium is pretty dire, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, the way Tesla's moving with their new battery packs, so they'll be virtually 100% recyclable. And Tesla's talking about non-extractive mining. So
with using common salt to clay sludge, and they spin it around, do all sorts of alchemy with it, but basically it's not using heavy chemicals and acids like other so-called visual.
Yeah, I'm not really sure on all the.
Yeah, no, I looked a couple of.
Is it the Tesla process?
They're just starting on it in Nevada, where they've bought basically a whole lot of desert with all this lithium clay in it, and they're going to dissolve the lithium out of the clay using just basically common salt and a centrifuging type process. So it's very uninvasive and very minimal impact. And they put the clay back where it came from, and after they take the lithium test.
Oh, that's great.
It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
So. As Musk always noted, in fact, the first principles is thought there's not only better and cheaper, that's much more cost effective, it's actually environmentally much friendly as well. Other methods use sort of acids to leach it out of the environment and stuff.
Yeah, I think that all the technology is there. This is the thing. It's only the politics that's holding us.
And once you get economies of scale, you've got the recycling is just going to be about, of course, closed loop system. Or big battery companies are building giant recycling plants right next to them.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible when they can just take back the new battery packs in Tesla. Musk saying will do 1 million miles, so 1.6 million kilometers. Take that back, strip it down and recycle it and put it into another one in 20 years' time.
And I read the other day that I think it's Tesla doing the prototypes in Germany. They're just getting it done for recycling.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it might not always be lithium anyway.
No.
Yeah, it could be something else as well. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically how I started this channel. And as an activist now, I'm like super focused on electric vehicles, especially because of the things that I mentioned before. I think that EVs are like a key part of solving the climate crisis. mainly because of the health benefits that we'll get from it. And then when we get the health benefits, people will be more energized and thinking more clearly and be able to tackle a lot of the other problems that we need to solve.
It goes hand in hand with the cleaning up of the grid too, because where old fossil fuel plants are closing down, all the infrastructure's there. You can build giant batteries and so on, keep the wires and poles and keep on setting the power out. But clean that.
Yeah, and just getting fossil fuel money out of politics will have such a massive impact around the world.
What sort of time frame do you reckon this will take?
I think change can happen much faster than we're led to believe. I think that we need a World War II scale mass mobilization to beat the climate crisis. I think that's where we're at now. And I think once humans actually get the emergency and they switch into crisis mode, myself, I've been in war mode for like 2 years now. Every day when I wake up, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, my mind is trained on how do I advocate harder for this, for change. And I think more and more people are going to get into that state as the months and years go by. And that we need a mass mobilization to
look what we did with the coronavirus and developing vaccines. Exactly. If you can just apply the same footing to solving this problem, would be well down the campfire.
Exactly, and like the Second World War, it was not good to use war analogies, but the Second World War shows what humans are capable of, and around the world we transformed our economies within 6 to 12 months.
30% of GDP in the US went to the war effort.
Really, up from like 5% or less, probably less than 5%. Yeah.
When they went from not building planes, building.
Yeah, and think of all the people that trained up in factories and stuff in that time. It's totally possible. We just need to excite people and make the case for rapid change. And I think once people get into it.
So I think the current environmental crisis we're having now, Siberia, Germany,
Canada.
California,
it's all, and another fire season here in Australia. So
the most
push us in that direction.
tragic news I heard is that the Amazon basin used to be a carbon sink is now not a carbon sink anymore because of all the fires.
Yeah, and I mean the big problem that we've got is even if we get to net zero tomorrow, we're going to have 20 years of warming lag at least. So we've got a pretty rough time ahead for all of us, really.
We're still going to have one where we got people discussing menus.
Menus?
Menus.
Yeah, well, sure.
You're just referring to Barnaby on the
No, I couldn't be just referring to
Oh, Barnaby, right. Yeah.
What's the menu?
Do you think I should get Barnaby in the car? So,
So I was going to ask, how can we help you? You're doing this channel now. Do you want suggestions for people you should take for a drive?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask at the end. So yeah, if anyone has feedback on the channel, so was chatting with Christopher before the meeting because he's seen a few that the original ones were short and sharp and a lot of fun, and then the last few been doing a longer format interview. So I took the Mayor of Hobart, Anna Reynolds, last Friday, and it's like a half an hour discussion where we get a bit more into details and vision for the future. So I'd really welcome any feedback on the channel. You can contact me on Twitter. And if you think of anyone, I'll be in Tassie for another couple of weeks, maybe longer with the lockdown in Victoria. And so if you think of any interesting people that I could potentially target or go after to get them in the driver's seat, let me know.
I think Braddon and Bass. What was that, Mitch? Braddon and Bass.
Yes, I really want to get out to the regional towns.
Northern Tasmania is just considering the federal government like that.
Yeah, that's what we're about.
When you get Scammon on the card, make sure he washes his hands. You don't want black on you.
How about Erica Betts? Should we get him in this? When,
So I almost got, came pretty close to getting Matt Canavan a few weeks ago. So I took Rex Patrick, the independent senator from South Australia. He loved it. And while we're on camera driving back to Parliament House, he actually challenged Matt Canavan to jump in the car. And then a few hours later, I dropped him off at Parliament. A few hours later, I got a text message from Rex Patrick's staff, and said, "Oh, Rex was chatting to Rex was chatting to Matt, in the Senate, and Matt said he was willing to give it a try, but then I didn't hear any more about it. But his staff may have like gone, actually, that's Dan Bleakley. He's been your biggest troll on Twitter for the last 21 years." So I really want to go across the political spectrum. I want to reach out to people who you wouldn't normally
So
get.
when I was traveling, I stopped in Alice Springs, and Hunter Murray, who's our AEVA organizer, I guess you'd say, for Alice and the Northern Territory, and I arranged to get a couple of country Liberal Party, I think they are CLP, aren't they? In the Northern Territory members, one of whom is the Shadow Energy guy, and the other one's the Shadow Environment guy, I think. But we took them for a drive, and Hunter's very good at doing videos. He took videos of those drives, and we also took I think he was an alderman from Alice Springs City Council, who are looking at doing electrifying their fleet and putting in chargers in Alice Springs. So he's taken videos, and I think he's taken some in the past, and the reactions are much like the ones you had, of course. But you might want to catch up with Hunter. He's probably got a few he could add to your channel if you're interested in hosting other people's videos. I didn't do any videos, but as I traveled around, I had a sign written car, and I would get 3 or 4 inquiries a day, just people wanted to talk. But more to the point, I guess probably 2 out of every 3 days, I'd take somebody for a drive. And even in a little old Nissan Leaf, which is not a performance Tesla, people were blown away consistently. And interestingly enough, the ones who were most reluctant to agree to go for a drive are the ones who had the biggest reaction. It was, even though they said, "Oh yeah, no, electric cars are fast. Yeah, they take off. They're full torque from a standing start. Yeah, they go pretty good. But no, I don't need a ride." And I said, "Yes, you do." And eventually I'd get them in, and then they go, "Holy shit," and all the rest of it. So it doesn't need a Tesla. You don't need a Tesla to do this, folks. But we were on Northern Territory roads with higher speed limits. Even so, they didn't stay within the speed limit, I'd have to say.
Did you have a tow bar attached to the Tesla?
No, but I stayed with a very good friend in Mackay who I studied engineering with, and I took him for a drive. He runs a caravan dealership in Mackay, and after I took him for a drive, he ordered a Cybertruck.
Oh, okay.
So
Very good.
when he gets it delivered, we're going to take it to the Palmyra Dragway. We're going to put one of his caravans on it and try to set the world record for a quarter mile with a caravan. And we're going to video it, and we're going to troll Scott Morrison. That's a rough plan.
Actually,
Yeah.
You remind me, one of the test drives that Hunter did was on the Dragway at Alice Springs. We went out to the drag strip, which was closed, but it was open. They were doing some construction work, so the gate was open, and we went in, and this elected member didn't worry about speed limits. He hit it, and he hit it hard. He did well. So that's on video. Hunter will get it for you.
Yeah.
Get in touch with me through Charles, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, great. Cheers. Yeah, I guess I'll wrap up now, but I'll just say that like the EV revolution, it's an organic thing. It's word of mouth. Yeah, we're not going to get any help from the mainstream media, because the mainstream media makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year selling polluting cars. So it needs to be word of mouth. It's about bums in seats. It's about getting people excited about the future. Not just the technology, but how, as I said before, how amazing our cities are going to be And if we can all paint that picture to other people around us, I think we can all help accelerate the transition.
Won't your job be done really when EVs become a lot cheaper? Because people, from what I read, people just naturally, a lot of them are interested in EVs. It's just the price barrier.
Yeah, a side story. I used to live in Amsterdam, and I became good friends with a Norwegian guy. We became housemates. And after knowing him for 6 months, I asked him what his parents did back in Norway, and he said, my father works for NATO. I said, what does he do with NATO? And he goes, he's the Secretary General. So his father was former Prime Minister of Norway for 10 years, and he was PM in 2001 when they brought in the 25% subsidy on EVs. Yeah. And so, you know, Norway's had, we all talk about Norway, you know, they're the leaders. They're at something like 70-75% uptake at the moment.
Target 2025, isn't it?
Yeah, for 4 years, and you won't be able to buy you won't be able to buy petrol or diesel cars. And the culture there, apparently, my friend was telling me the culture, it has changed. So it's really like looked down, frowned upon if you're driving a petrol or diesel car, right? Now I do that when I'm walking around. I get a bit, you know, say a few words here and there to people driving, you know, polluting diesel cars and whatnot. But I think it helps more when you got broad kind of cultural shift.
The reverse attitude here.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it can happen much faster than, and Norway's, you know, it's taken 20 years to get to where they are now, but also electric vehicles have changed a lot in that 20 years. So I think we should be trying to get the majority of our fleet over by 2030.
Kind of with the scale. The good thing is, particularly with buses, the payback period is in 3 years or less. It's an and the 50,000 saving every year thereafter. Yeah. So for the hard-headed sort of don't care about the environment part, you probably cut through on the economic argument. It's a $16.4 billion opportunity just changing the bus fleet of Australia of all the governments in Australia.
That's an easy sell, but the problem is the guys who have the diesel contracts for the buses at the moment. Yeah. What we're talking about is corruption, like and influence over governments, right? This is the whole reason that the renewables revolution isn't happening in Australia is because of fossil fuel influence over our governments. And
because you've got a prime minister that believes that coal's good for humanity.
Well, he believes that, but like,
well, maybe he doesn't. But when the political donations to be made,
there's donations, but there's also, I mean, every solar panel, every wind turbine, every battery, every electric vehicle is a threat to the profits of the fossil fuel industry. That's what we're dealing with. The government is the fossil fuel industry, right? They've been suppressing the renewables and EV revolution for 20 years.
So what you need to do is point out that your coal miners that took in the high vis stuff, the coal becomes the electricity for the car.
Yeah.
We're on your side.
They don't seem to get it. That's a little selling point for them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Charles, thank you very much for organising that. I'm going to close the meeting, so we've got 25 minutes before we have to be out of here. So you have to press the button on the hot water cycle. Make that thing burn boil again. I think there's milk to be able to finish biscuits and things. So keep on talking. You need to be out of here by a bit before 9:30. Thank you very much, Daniel, and all power to you. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Another nice meeting. Thank you for organising the Zoom. Bye, everybody on Zoom. Thank you for being there. And see you all on the 22nd of September.